Well, that is one of the strangest NBA seasons from a defending champion that many of us have ever seen. The 2023 Golden State Warriors seemingly forgot how to play defense, couldn't win a road game, and while all of that was happening, Stephen Curry, somehow, might have played the best basketball of his life last season. 0-8. The Warriors' road record to open the season before they eventually captured their first road win against the Houston Rockets more than a month into the NBA season. And that record was incredibly the worst road record to start a season by a defending champion since the Chicago Bulls in 1999. But for the Warriors, what changed just a year after winning an NBA championship?
Annie up, and this year is looking good too.
Do you see this Warriors offense? Look closely. The Warriors in this clip are in a 4-out, 1-in set with Steph and Kevon Looney running the high pick and roll almost perfectly. And with a few steps penetrating the defense, this moment right here is exactly the foundation of the Warriors offense. The offense that got them 4 chips. The Warriors this past season led the NBA in assists as a team with over 2,400 assists. That's even more than when they led in assists as a team during their record-breaking 73-win season. Yet every time I looked up this past postseason, the Warriors looked more and more like a one-man Steph Curry show. And I just couldn't wrap my head around it. When is the last time you saw Steph Curry carry such a load offensively the way he did in the postseason, particularly against the Lakers? He nearly doubled the shot attempts of his next closest teammate. And, well, going back to this play right here, back in the preseason, it's surprising to say the least, knowing that it was just the start of last season when the Warriors came out looking like they'd run away with the best offense in the league. That's something that the Warriors offense hasn't had throughout the 8 years of this dynasty's existence. They lacked an athletic big that could consistently roll fast enough to the rim for a lob dunk. Only if James Wiseman could have remained healthy for Golden State and stuck around a bit longer. Perhaps this would have gave the Warriors the ultra-dynamic look to this offense that could have taken them to a new level in the postseason when they desperately needed it. But still, all the events of last season give me more hope that the Warriors will come out next season hunting for their 5th NBA title. With Steph and CP3 initiating the offense, Draymond's role is going as defined as ever as a defensive anchor. With Draymond coming back and the Warriors almost certainly not being near as atrocious on the road as they were last year, the key will definitely be for the Warriors to get back to their original blueprint of ball movement and defined roles for each guy on the team. They were once the NBA's most fundamentally perfect team because of how well-rounded they were. The Warriors in 2015 and 2016 featured not just a really good bench, they featured the best bench in the entire NBA, and it wasn't even close. The bench unit led by Andre Iguodala and Sean Livingston used to extend the Warriors' lead when Steph, Klay, and Draymond sat down. And that was the ultimate difference in the Warriors going from a flashy 67 wins in 2015 to a record 73 wins just a season later. Now, I'm not saying the Warriors are going to cruise for a 70-plus win season. However, I am saying that the Warriors' off-season plan for the next year should be as simple as going back to what they had going for them before. Even if you look at their title seasons, the Warriors had pieces coming off the bench that would light teams up in a heartbeat. Even as recently as just 2 seasons ago, when they had that dominant spark plug in Jordan Poole. All of that was missing from the Warriors last season that I think they'll regain come next season. But why focus solely on ifs when what we know is clearly in front of us? The Warriors have been a consistently dangerous team at and around the perimeter for over a decade now, with Steph and Klay Thompson manning the back end. In fact, we know that Klay still holds the record for the most three-pointers made in a single game with 14 when he did it back to start the 2018 season against the Chicago Bulls. But I can guarantee you that this Steph Curry stat will blow you away. Any guesses? Well, don't guess, because I'm about to tell you. You see, while the shorthanded Warriors were fighting for a playoff spot in the 2020-21 season, Steph pulled off something that is so rare, that he achieved a rare three-point shooting feat multiple times in a span of like 1 week, that some guys in the NBA either haven't done in their entire career or have just done it once, maybe twice, in their entire career. From April 12, 2021 to April 19, 2021, Steph Curry hit 42 three-pointers in just 4 games. In a 7-day span, 42 three-pointers for the greatest shooter ever. By far the most three-pointers in NBA history in those many games. But here's the other thing. That season, Steph had 7 games of at least 10 or more three-pointers made in a single game. Do you want me to tell you which NBA player in history of basketball comes second place to Steph Curry on a list like that? Nobody. I think you know the point I'm trying to get at here. And it goes back to what I was saying about improving their depth and getting back all the beautiful ball movement and player movement offensively. The Warriors have Steph Curry, who is still the most lethal offensive weapon in the NBA. I strongly believe that if Steph just had the depth of his team that he's used to having, it would have been enough for him to conserve just that bit of extra energy each game to go beat the Lakers in the second round of the playoffs. Because he could simply do things so wild and so rare with the shot that single-handedly can elevate a team to 50 wins. I mean, this guy was gassed all of last season, undoubtedly. How much lifting could one man have done? Especially after all the lifting Steph had to endure in the regular season to keep the Warriors afloat in the standings. But I want to go back to the only unanimous MVP season in league history, because if we look at Steph's offensive box plus minus for the 2015-16 season, he finished with a mark of 10.3, which is the best offensive season in NBA history according to that metric. Well, for the first few weeks in the season, or when the Warriors barely looked like a G League team, Steph's offensive box plus minus was 10.4, which would have been the single highest mark in NBA history had he kept it going. Yet, and still, Steph stood in at just 5th place in the MVP race through the first month and a half of the season. Again, speaking to the burden on this man's legs from the start of the season. Now, the question is, how is he doing this? How at nearly 35 years old, with all the miles on his legs, is Steph Curry doing something only a few players in the history of basketball have ever done? Well, I don't think anyone left on earth refuses to acknowledge Steph as the greatest shooter of all time. After Steph, by his standards, had a slump of a season shooting the ball 2 seasons ago, he came back in full force last season and hit the three-pointer at a clip that we saw him shoot at years ago when the Warriors broke the record for the most wins in NBA history. When you have a generational talent like Steph at the forefront of your team, the championship window is still very much open. With that being said, big-time changes to the roster are inevitable at this point. We already mentioned the addition of CP3, and I think that CP3 still being one of the best distributors in the league will inevitably take a ton of pressure off Steph Curry's shoulders. Besides, can you imagine the look Steph and Clay are going to get with their maestro CP3 zipping them cross-court passes for threes? My goodness. There are tons of reports beginning to surface about the immediate future of this team, but I came here to prove to you that the Warriors don't need to do anything out of the ordinary or super fancy to capture another title. They don't need to mortgage a chunk of their future to bring in an expensive superstar. Chris Paul could very well be enough. The blueprint is in front of us all. What's made the Warriors unlike any other dynasty ever is how role players tend to excel with the shooting prowess of Steph and Clay on the court, with Draymond being the emotional leader of the troops and CP3 being the new floor general. Add size, add solid 3-and-D guys, follow the formula you had in 2015, 2016, even 2022, the Warriors need to shoot for depth. Go after a guy who can do things like Sean Livingston did for them years ago as an elite bench player in that system. Go for guys that can come off the bench and light it up from scoring like Leandro Barbosa was for them years ago. Even go for that quality depth in the interior that made you a force defensively like JaVale McGee and David West were for the Warriors. The Warriors need to follow that same approach for next year. Who disagrees? And if they do, they're going to be right in the mix with the few teams that are going to land the best odds of winning the 2024 NBA championship.